Tamilnadu Board 11th class history, 3rd chapter, the Vedic culture. The original home of the Aryans, the Vedic literature and their importance, the Rig-Vedic age and its culture, the later Vedic age and its culture. The cities of Harappan culture had declined by 1500 BC. Consequently, their economic and administrative system had slowly declined. Around this period, the speakers of Indo-Aryan language Sanskrit entered the northwest India from the Indo-Iranian region. Initially, they would have come in small numbers through the passes in the northwestern mountains. Their initial settlements were in the valleys of northwest and the plains of the Punjab. Later, they moved into Indo-Gangetic plains as they were mainly cattle keeping people. They were mainly in search of pastures. By 6th century BC, they occupied the whole of North India, which was referred to as Aryavata. This period between 15 BC and 600 BC may be divided into early Vedic period or Rig Vedic period 1500 BC to 1000 BC and later Vedic period 1000 to 600 BC. Original home of the Aryans. The original home of Aryans is a debatable question, and there are several views. Different scholars have identified different regions as the original home of Aryans. They include the Arctic region, Germany, Central Asia, and southern Russia. Bala Gandhara Tilak argues that the Aryans came from the Arctic region on astronomical calculations. However, the theory of southern Russia appears to be more probable and widely accepted by historians. From there, the Aryans moved to different parts of Asia and Europe. They entered India in about 1500 BC and came to be known as Indo-Aryans. They spoke the Indo-Aryan language Sanskrit. Vedic literature. The word Veda is derived from the root Vid, which means to know. In other words, the term Veda signifies superior knowledge. The Vedic literature consists of the 4 Vedas: Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samveda, Atharvaveda. The Rig Veda is the earliest of the 4 Vedas and it consists of 1028 hymns. The hymns were sung in praise of various gods. The Yajurveda consists of various details of rules to be observed at the time of sacrifice. The Samaveda is said to tune for the purpose of chanting during sacrifice. It is called the Book of Chants, and origin of the Indian music are traced in it. The Atharvaveda contains details of rituals. Beside the Vedas, there are other sacred works like the Brahmans, the Upanishads, the Aranyakas, and the epics. Ramayana and Mahabharata. The Brahmanas are the treatises relating to prayer and sacrificial ceremony. The Upanishads are philosophical texts dealing with topics like the soul, the absolute, the origin of the world, and the mysteries of nature. The Aranyakas are called forest books and they deal with mysticism, rites, rituals, and sacrifices. The author of Ramayana was Valmiki and that of Mahabharata was Vedvyas. The Rig Vedic age or early Vedic period 1500 to 1000 BC. During the Rig Vedic period, the Aryans were mostly confined to the Indus region. The Rig Veda refers to Saptasindhu, or the land of 7 rivers. This includes the 5 rivers of Punjab, namely Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Byas, Satluj, along with the Indus and Saraswati. The political, social, and cultural life of the Rig Vedic people can be traced from the hymns of Rig Veda. Political organization. The basic unit of political organization was Kula or family. Several families joined together on the basis of their kinship to form a village or grama. The leader of grama was known as Gramani. A group of villages constituted a larger unit called Vishu. It was headed by Vishrapati. The highest political unit was called Jana or tribe. There were several tribal kingdoms during the Rig Veda period, such as Bharatas, Matsyas, Yadus, Purus. The head of the kingdom was called as Rajans or king. The Rig Vedic polity was normally monarchical and the succession was hereditary. The king was assisted by Purohita or priest and Senani or commander of the army. In his administration, there were 2 popular bodies called the Sabha and Samiti. The former seems to have been a council of elders and the latter a general assembly of the entire people. Social life. The Rig Vedic society was patriarchal. The basic unit of society was family or Graham. The head of family was known as Grahapati. Monogamy was generally practiced while polygamy was prevalent among the royal and notable families. The wife took care of the household and participated in all the major ceremonies. Women were given equal opportunities as men for their spiritual and intellectual development. There were women poets like Apala, Vishwara Ghosha, and Lopamudra. During the Rigvedic period, women could even attend the popular assemblies. There was no child marriage and the practice of sati was absent. Both men and women wore upper and lower garments made of cotton and wool. A variety of ornaments were used. The a variety of ornaments were used by both men and women. Wheat and barley milk, and its products like curd and ghee, vegetables and fruits were the chief articles of food. The eating of cow's meat was prohibited since it was a scared animal. Chariot racing, horse racing, dancing, music, and dance were the favorite pastimes. The social divisions were not rigid during the Rig Vedic period as it was in the later Vedic period economic condition. The Rigvedic Aryans were pastoral people and their main occupation was cattle rearing. Their wealth was estimated in terms of their cattle. When they permanently settled in North India, they began to practice agriculture with the knowledge and use of iron. They were able to clean forests and bring more lands under cultivation. Carpentry was another important profession, and the availability of wood from the forest cleared made of profitable carpenters produced chariot and plugs. Workers in metal made a variety of articles with copper, bronze, and iron. Spinning was another important occupation, and cotton and woolen fabrics were made. Goldsmiths were achieved in making ornaments. The potters made various kinds of vessels for domestic use. Trade was another important economic activity, and rivers served as important means of transport. Trade was conducted on the barter system. In the later times, gold coins called nishka were used as media of exchange in large transactions. Religion: the Rigvedic Aryans worshipped the natural forces like earth, fire, wind, rain, and thunder. They personified these natural forces into many gods and worshipped them. The important Rigvedic gods were Prithvi, earth, Agni, fire, Vayu, wind, Varuna, rain, and Indra, thunder. Indra was the most popular among them during the early Vedic period. Next in importance to Indra was Agni, who was regarded as an intermediary between the gods and people. Varuna was supposed to be an upholder of the natural order. There were also female gods like Aditi and Usas. There were no temples and no idol worship during the early Vedic period. Prayers were offered to the gods in the expectations of rewards. Ghee, milk, and grain were given as offerings. Elaborate rituals were followed during the worship. Later Vedic period 1000 to 600 BC. The Aryans further moved towards east in the later Vedic period. The Satpat Brahman refers to the expansion of Aryans to the eastern Gangetic plain. Several tribal groups and kingdoms are mentioned in the later Vedic literature. One important development during this period is the growth of large kingdoms. Kuru and Panchala kingdoms flourished in the beginning. Prakrit, Parishkrit, Parikshat, and Janmanjaya were the famous rulers of Kuru kingdom. Pravahana Jayawali was a popular king of the Panchalas. He was a patron of learning. After the fall of Kurus and Panchalas, other kingdoms like Kosala, Kasi, Videha came into prominence. A famous ruler of Kasi was Ajatasattu. Janak was the king of Videha with its capital of Mithila. His court was adorned by scholar Yajna Valakya. Magadha Venga seems to be the easternmost tribal kingdoms. The later Vedic texts also refer to the three divisions of the India. Aryavarta northern India, Madhya Desha central India, and Dakshinapath southern India. Political organization: larger kingdoms were formed during the later Vedic period. Many Jana tribes were amalgamated to form Janpadas or Rashtras. In the later Vedic period, hence the royal power had increased along with the increase in the size of kingdoms. The king performed various rituals and sacrifices to strengthen his position. They include Rajasuya as consecration ceremony, Ashwamedha horse sacrifice, and Vajpaya chariot race. The king also assumed titles like Raj Vishvajanam, Ahilya Ahilya Bhuvanapati, lord of all earth, Agrath and Samrat, sole ruler. In the later Vedic period, a large number of new officials were involved in the administration in addition to the existing Purohita, Senani and Gramani. They include the treasury officer, tax collector, and a royal messenger. At the lower levels, the administration was carried one by the village assemblies. The importance of the Samiti and the Sabha had dismissed. During the later Vedic period, economic conditions, iron was used extensively in this period, and this enabled the people to clear forests and to bring more land under cultivation. Agriculture became the chief occupation. Improved types of implements were used for cultivation besides barley, rice, and wheat were grown. Knowledge of manure was another improvement. Industrial activity became more varied, and there was greater specialization. Metalwork, leatherwork, carpentry, and pottery made great progress. In addition to internal trade, foreign trade became extensive. The later Vedic people were familiar with the sea, and they traded with the countries like Babylon. A class of hereditary merchants Vanya came into existence. Vaishyas also carried on trade and commerce. They organized themselves into guilds known as Ganas. Janas, besides Nishka of the Rigvedic period, gold and silver coins like Satmana or Krishnala were used as media of exchange social life. The four divisions of society, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudras, or the Varna system, was truly established during the later Vedic period. The two higher classes, Brahmana and Kshatriya, enjoyed privileges that were denied to the Vaishyas and Sudra. Brahmin occupied a higher position than a Kshatriya, but sometimes Kshatriyas claimed a high status over the Brahmins. Many subcastes, on the basis of their occupation, appeared in this period. In the family, the power of the father increased. During the later Vedic period, there was no improvement in the status of women. They were still considered inferior and subordinate to men. Women also lost their political rights of attending assemblies. Child marriages had become common. According to the Aitreya Brahmana, daughter has been described as a source of misery. However, the women in royal household enjoyed certain privileges. Religion gods of early Vedic period like Indra and Agni lost their importance. Prajapati, the creator, Vishnu, the protector, and Rudra, the destroyer, became prominent during the later Vedic period. Sacrifices were still important, and the ritual connected with them became more elaborate. The importance of prayer declined, and that of sacrifices increased. Priesthood became a profession and hereditary one. The formula for sacrifice were invented and elaborated by the priestly class. Therefore, towards the end of this period, there was a strong reaction against priestly domination and against sacrifices and rituals. The rise of Buddhism and Jainism was the direct result of these elaborate sacrifices. Also, the authors of the Upanishads, which is the essence of Hindu philosophy, turned away from the useless rituals and insisted on true knowledge, jnana, for peace and salvation. Learning outcomes. The Vedic literature, such as the four Vedas and the Brahmans and other later Vedic literature, the Rigvedic polity, society, and economy, religious life of the Rigvedic people, the changes during the later Vedic period in the sphere of polity and society, the increasing rites and rituals in the religious life of the later Vedic people.